Hello and welcome to ReginaldESQ. I'm Underhook and this is my review of the British Tier 4 self-propelled gun, the Birch Gun. So is it any good? Yeah, it's really good. I like it. Quite a bit of fun. It has 190 hit points, which is on the upper side of average, and it has weighs in at 12 tonne, which is the second lightest, the lightest being the SU5 at 10 tonnes. But you're not going to ram anyone in this because it's too slow anyway, which is surprising since its forward speed is quoted as 45 kilometers an hour and reverse speed of 10 kilometers an hour. However, that seems to me to be a work of fiction. The most I could get out of this thing on the flat was 30 kilometers an hour. It may do 45 down a steep hill, but I actually never went down a steep hill, so I can't tell you for sure. That would make the 30 kilometers an hour makes it the equal slowest in its class along with the SU5, so it's not fast. Combined that with the track traverse of 18, which is definitely the slowest in class, the next worst being 22, it is painfully slow to move and reposition in, and it has pretty good range though, so I would suggest you won't very often be repositioning in this tank. The turret traverse is 17 degrees, and it's very important this because this particular SPG has a unique feature. It has a fully traversable turret. Yes, the turret spins 360 degrees, just like a normal tank. So you don't have to move your tank or traverse your tank to re-aim your gun. That is a big advantage because it means you will maintain your full camouflage. Also, it's really worth fitting a camouflage net to this tank because you don't have to move. Your camouflage net keeps working, and so it is probably, even though the camouflage isn't that good, it does stay camouflaged very well, so it's probably the stealthiest of the SPGs. Now, speaking of camouflage, the camouflage rating on this tank actually is the second worst in its class. Not very good at all. However, only the American M7 is worse, and it's not much worse. But because of the camouflage net and not needing to traverse, it's such a big advantage anyway that it doesn't really matter. It is hard for the enemy to spot you. Now the view range. The view range of 340 meters is average, and the signal range though of 550 is the worst in class. And signal range is important in SPGs because you do need to know where everything is so you can shoot at it. Now, the gun depression on this tank is -5 degrees. Gun depression not being as important as on a normal tank. Elevation is more important on SPG, but it's still important if you want to shoot down into the bowl, say, of Al Haluf. So -5 is about average, but some of the American and I think the Panzer SFL both have -10 degrees in gun depression. So if you're looking for that sort of depression, this doesn't have it. The elevation is also pretty poor, but it does depend on which gun you use. Now I'm going to use the elevation statistics quoted on Wiki Tanks rather than Tank Inspector, because the ones on Tank Inspector are a bit ambiguous, and it does, like I say, depend on which gun you use. So with the top gun on this tank, your gun elevation is 37.5 degrees, which is the worst in class. So it does have a very low gun arc. I think though if you use the earlier gun, which has lower damage and lower penetration, it might be a lot better. So you could experiment with that. However, the other tanks have better elevation. So what does that mean? Well, a low gun arc basically means that it's very difficult to shoot tanks that are hiding behind rocks or buildings, because your shell hits the building. If you have a very high gun arc, you can come down almost straight down, and even if they're fairly close to a building, you can still hit them or do splash damage to them. So this tank isn't good for that. However, it does have a very good range. The range of this gun is 1,050 meters, which means you can shoot across even the biggest maps, but diagonally, if you're in a corner, you won't be able to reach the other corner of a lot of maps. But you don't have to move too much, which is fortunate because it's very slow. So you can sort of sit back and just keep firing this gun, and it does have a high rate of fire. Let's have a look at the research for this gun. So basically the engine and radio, because I've got a lot of British tanks, I already got those straight to the top one. You do need to upgrade the tracks to get to the top gun. I ended up bypassing that by buying the enhanced suspension, which I've still got fitted to the tank. Although it's not a very good upgrade for this tank, but I just did it so I could get the gun straight away. You can see here the 18 pounder and a 25 pounder. The 18 pounder basically high explosive, does 42 pen with 260 damage, and that compares to the high explosive on the 25 pounder of 44 pen, a little bit more pen, and 280 damage, a little bit more damage. The big difference though is in the armor piercing. Here you get 65 pen, here you get 71 and 180, but you also here get premium ammo, which you don't get on the 18 pounder, which gives you 92 pen with 180 damage. That said, however, they have the same aiming time, and the upgraded gun has slightly better accuracy at 0.72 versus 0.74, and the rate of fire is slightly slower. I didn't use AP on this gun because of the low arc. You tend not to hit the top deck of a tank. You tend to hit the sides and the turret, or even the front armor of a tank. So it wasn't really very useful, because even if it's a higher tier heavily armored tank, the 71 won't penetrate, and so you end up not doing any damage at all. At least with the HE you'll do track damage or gun damage, or maybe a small amount of actual damage. So I found it much more useful to use the HE ammo. And so you're not really landing on top deck. However, if you hit medium tanks or lightly armored TDs, you'll devastate them with the full 280 damage. 0.72 accuracy is, well, it sounds terrible, but for artillery at this tier, it's actually not bad accuracy. Aiming time of 5 seconds is okay, and the reload of 6.25 is actually quite good as well. So compared to the other SPGs, this is low damage, but rapid firing and fairly accurate. I think that's about all I can tell you about this tank for now. I'll just run quickly over the benefits and features of the tank. It's fully rotating turret, means basically you're better camouflage and you have a smoother gun rotation, so it doesn't lose its aim as badly as some others. Long range, low trajectory, which is a bit of a problem, hard to hit people who are close to buildings, etc. The shells do low damage. They also have a low splash radius, so if you don't land right next to or on top of the tank, you won't do any damage at all. It does have a high rate of fire. It does have good accuracy. Just keep pumping out the shells. You have to hit tanks a lot of times, but you can. High velocity means the shells travel pretty quickly. The tank itself is slow though. Bearing all that in mind, though, I still really enjoyed playing it. We're going to go quickly into Tank Inspector, and then we'll play a couple of games. Alright, we're going to have a look at the Birch Gun in Tank Inspector. It'll be very quick because it basically doesn't have any armour. We can see here that the front is only 6mm thick, as is the shielding that will protect you from pistol fire, perhaps. The top deck of the tank is 4mm, as is the interior. The side of the tank is 6mm as well. You do have some spaced armour near the tracks, which is 6mm overlaying 6mm, and is the best armour on the tank. Rear is also 6, so and it's open top. If anything hits you, it will penetrate, obviously. Okay.
Time to roll out.
The map is Redshire, and it's a tier 5 match. I'm in my tier 4 Birch Gun, or we are, because you're joining me. I'm just backing up here a little bit. I am not really very experienced with artillery, so I probably take really terrible positions. But hey, you know. I fired a shot there. I'm just doing some preemptive firing here. Because this thing reloads so fast, it's worth just firing the gun and keep firing wherever you think someone might be if there's no targets on the map. You never know what you can hit. I have actually one-shot killed people just by doing this, just random firing and happening to, you know, a medium tank or a light tank just run straight into it. So it's worth doing. Now we've got a target spotted on the map. Good target for us. We could one-shot kill this guy. He's a light tank. He's stationary. We fire and we miss, unfortunately. So as you can see here, it does takes a while to aim. So one thing I did learn.
Vehicle destroyed.
One shot kill. There you go. We one shot killed that guy. So we were pretty lucky because he had disappeared off the map. But as you can see, that it loads very quickly for artillery, so you can just keep firing. And light tanks like that at lower tiers, it can definitely hurt them. A Chi-Nu is another tank with terrible armor. We could do a fair bit of damage to him. Now he backed up just as I fired, unfortunately. So using artillery, you do have to predict where tanks are going to move to, whether they're going to stay stationary or move forward or back. And you do sort of start to get better at it after a while. And you do hear the tracking noise if you manage to track them. And if you do track them and I haven't got a repair kit or they've already used it, and say if they disappear off screen, well, you just stay there and keep your aim there and just fire at them again, and hopefully they haven't moved because they're tracked. Now the enemy artillery was spotted, so I saw my map and I went straight there. But you can see there I'm out of range. Where those green dots are, that's a maximum range. So I cannot reach that tank, unfortunately. But always good whenever you see the enemy artillery light up is go straight for them, because they, remember, can shoot across the map too and could take you out if you're ever spotted. So definitely want to get rid of artillery as soon as possible. Plus, artillery tend to remain stationary, often even if they're spotted, because they don't always have, there's another good hit there, they don't always have sixth sense. So usually they're a very easy target to hit, and because they have terrible armor, they're usually also, oh, we're having a field day here, they're also very easy to kill. And load it again, fire straight away. Don't wait for a full aim on this one, because actually he's moving around. So far better to get the shots out there with a rapid firing gun like this than worry about aiming all the time.
Enemy vehicle destroyed.
Wow, T-49 devastated him. So we've been lucky, we've been hitting a lot of tanks with fairly poor armor. Now Matilda has a lot better armor, but if we can get the shot into the side, I fire again. That one misses. Now the enemy only has a couple of tanks remaining. AMX-38 is actually pretty well armoured for a light tank. So I think he's going to move forward, but he doesn't. So I fire in front of him, but he stops. He's now tracked, I think. So let's see if we can finish him off if he stays stationary. We miss. Unfortunately, that happens. Now he's moving again. So I try to get a fair bit in front of him, but then he stops. Just decide to fire anyway. A bit lucky to get that hit in, actually. But sometimes, yeah, we've had some bad luck. Sometimes you get some good luck, so it all works out. Or someone else has hit him, and we miss. Unfortunate, because we would have got the kill there. And we're on 5 kills too. Darn it. Missed out on a Top Gun. Now we've got 539 damage, so let's see what happens when we look at the stats. So looking at the stats, you can see we got a mastery badge, and we killed a lot of tanks. It was a good game. Next screen. So we finished on top for damage, but not for XP. This M7 here got more XP than us, but still a very good game. And we fired 20 shots. 6 of those were direct hits, and we also got a couple of splash damage, and all those 6 hits that hit penetrated. We did a total of 831 damage, which is not bad. Enemy vehicles damaged 6, destroyed 5. So we were lucky that we did some really big damage on some of those tanks and managed to kill them. Damage due to our assistance 436, so that would have been tracking, I'm assuming. We received 21,000 credits. The ammunition is very cheap. 20 shells only cost us 1,600, and we made 19,000, so very profitable. And 629 raw XP was enough for mastery. Now that sounds incredible that it's so low an amount is mastery, but it's very hard to earn decent XP in these SPGs. Even if you do like multiples of damage. So I've got 190 hit points and I've done 831 damage, which is what? That's 4 times the value of my tank in damage, and I still only got 600 and something XP. That's why that's mastery, because it's actually very hard to get much XP, because you're not doing any spotting damage, you're not bouncing shells or all that other stuff that you get XP for. So it's very hard to earn, I found, XP, and so the grind on artillery is quite slow because the XP earning potential is generally quite low, especially with a low damage gun like this. Next game. Okay, the map is Abbey. I think it's Abbey. And it's a tier 4 match, so we're top of the tree. There's a few tier 3 tanks in this game as well, which really suits us because we have a low damage gun and which not great pen. So against tier 4s and 3s we have an opportunity to do a fair bit of damage. I must say in artillery you generally seem to be against higher tiers more often than you are in normal tanks. So here you can see the terribly slow traverse and movement of this tank. I hadn't played arty on this map before, not from this side, so I was just trying to figure out where to go. Alright, so I can see there's tanks here, so we're trying to get some action here. I fire my first shell before aiming. Nearly hit him actually. Now waiting for it to finish aiming and just take a shot just in case he's still there. Now T-28s are prime targets for me because they have low armor and you can do a lot of damage to him. Now he's tracked, so I'm just patiently waiting to reload and had kept my finger on the button so the shell goes straight away. There you go, 254 damage. That's simply because the T-28 has terrible armor. I fire another shell hoping to get the kill, but it misses. Yeah, so it's, you do learn, I'm learning now through playing artillery what kind of tanks are good targets. So it's good to know that if you're playing a normal tank, to know that you're going to be a prime target for artillery. For example, light tanks are great targets, but they're rarely still long enough or visible long enough for you to get a good hit on. But medium tanks tend to be great for HE shells. So big medium tanks like a T-28 is a great target. And the Japanese medium tanks are great targets. Slow moving tanks are also of course good, but tend to be heavily armoured and so tend to avoid those. But sort of these lightly armoured medium tanks or lightly armoured tank destroyers are great. You do lots of damage to them. Got a Panzer 1C here. I fire straight away before I finish aiming and look at that. Bang. That's why it's worth firing a shot before you finish aiming with a high rate of fire gun. Different story if you've got a very low rate of fire. 248, ouch. So yeah, just this particular high rate of fire type gun, you just want to keep the gun firing in my opinion all the time. I think we tracked him there, so I'm going to fire again. Hopefully he's still there. Missed. Okay. Just can't, the buildings are in the way. So this is what I mean about this gun not having has a bit of a low arc, so I can't shoot into there. So I'm now just looking around to see if this other T-28 pops up again. I'd love to get shots on these guys, but I just can't hit them and they're only available targets at the moment. We're in a bit of trouble here. It's 6-10, so the enemy has 4 more tanks than we do. So we've got 5 tanks, they have 9. Now I can see bushes getting knocked down, so I fire a shot. Or did I fire a shot? Yeah, I did. But now I can see there's more bushes going down over here. But the tank is moving pretty quick. He's not going to still be there, I don't think. I'm hoping he's going to get spotted again. That's why I was just staying there to keep my aim. Now I can see a T-28 is coming to clean me up. I've just been spotted. This shot has to hit.
Enemy armor is destroyed.
And it does. Now I've been spotted, I have to move straight away because the enemy artillery, if he's smart, will definitely be shooting at my position. So I decided to move straight away. I just moved a bit, but I noticed the enemy artillery was spotted, so I wanted to line up a shot at him, but he got killed already. Enemy Covenator coming down. I'm just trying to predict his movement. And I fired, didn't give enough lead. But as you can see, quick reload on this gun, and I'll fire straight away again.
That was close.
I think we tracked him. We missed him, but tracked him. So I'm going to fire in the same position again. because he's tracked, but I missed.
Enemy armor is destroyed.
Oh no, that was somebody else that missed. We hit him. Oh, that's alright then. Here comes an M3 Lee. I'm aiming, trying to predict his movement, and he gets stuck. So we fire
Gotcha.
and kill him. Well, because he was leaned over, we landed right on the top of him. So the HE shell penetrated and did full damage. Normally with him, I would hit his armor and wouldn't do full damage. I would hit like the front or the sides because it's the low trajectory. But that's the difference. With a higher trajectory shell, you can do a lot more damage because you're hitting the top where there's almost no armor. So now, near the end of the game, we've actually turned the game around now. It's now on the... we've got 4 tanks, they have 3. So we've turned it around from a deficit to a whatever the opposite of deficit is. Can't think at the moment. I'm hoping this T-28 will come into range. My poor gun arc means I can't shoot over these ridges, and I can't shoot down on him. I've got 4 kills. I'd love to get a top gun. I decide now to move and be a bit cheeky, take a chance, move and see if I can get into a better position to shoot this T-28. I haven't moved yet. I was actually going to go into TD mode. One shot into this T-28 should kill him. And the T-28 is a very dangerous tank. Excellent gun. I did quite well in my T-28 when I had it. I've sold it now. Okay, one of the guys manages to kill it. So I've relocated anyway. It's now 2-all. There's the enemy artillery. Our Matilda's up there, see if we can get a shot. I fire straight away, but our Matilda on the cap has killed it anyway. It's only the BT-7 left. My chances of getting Top Gun has evaporated. And it looks like we're going to cap. And indeed, I can tell you now we do cap before the BT-7 doesn't get found. Alright, so another great game in the Birch Gun. We got a mastery badge and also got high caliber. Woohoo! Next screen we can see that we finished second for XP. The Matilda that ended up capping out got the top XP. But we did finish on top for damage by a long way. We did almost double the damage of our next best one, which is the T-28. So it shows you that in the Birch Gun, even though it does do low damage per shot, you can still do a fair bit of damage if you have a bit of luck. Now, we fired 17 shots, and of that, 8 of them were direct hits, and all 8 of those that hit penetrated. So we were very lucky, did a lot of damage. 1,335 damage, which is great. We we hit or damaged 5 tanks, destroying 4 of them, and we received 24,000 credits. As you can see, once again, ammunition, very cheap, and that gave us a very healthy profit. It was 644 XP, so it looks like from both games around about 600 will give you mastery in this tank. That's it. Thank you for watching my review of the Birch Gun. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more reviews, please subscribe to ReginaldESQ. Have fun.